Hello and welcome to the Genuine Learning Blog. My name is Melisa Galasso, and today we're going to talk about another AICPA proposed strategic plan. Seems to be a theme the last couple of weeks on the blog. Today we're going to talk about the Peer Review Board's proposed strategic plan for 2027 through 2030. I actually had an opportunity at the Engage conference to hear a session on this, so I actually really enjoyed listening to their version, which was an hour long. I'm going to give you a short and sweet version today. But just in case, if you are a peer reviewer or you are peer reviewed, what are some of the things that the Peer Review Board is thinking about in the next 3 years? So this was issued in June of 2026. They are looking at feedback. So hopefully if you are someone who either performed peer review or you are peer reviewed, if you want to provide some feedback, they are seeking input from stakeholders across the profession to ensure their priorities and planned activities remain focused on what matters most. They also want to look at emerging risks and provide practical implementation. So what is the peer review program? Well, the objective of the AICPA's peer review program is to promote and enhance quality in the accounting and auditing services provided by firms and individuals subject to the AICPA's standard for reporting, performing and reporting on peer reviews in the service of the public interest, right? So when we think about this, why do we care about peer review? Peer review helps ensure quality and helps us ensure that the work that's being done, where we're providing assurance in particular, is being done to the standards. And so the objective is achieved by performing peer reviews tailored to type and size, so making sure it's truly a peer review, remediating and removing firms as appropriate. So if you have a problem, helping remediate it. If you're kind of a lost cause, moving you out of the system. Gathering and analyzing data so we can find out what are the things that people don't understand, what are things that are not applied consistently, what are our weaknesses, and how can we support that. Proactively identifying emerging quality issues. We've seen a lot of that come out recently. And then sharing relevant insights and information with affected parties. So that's the objectives as laid out in the strategic plan. And they've identified 6 keys to success. And I think these are really interesting. The first one is obviously delivering a high quality practice monitoring program, right? Tailoring it, providing clear, consistent guidance, effective oversight. So really the goals of the program, right? That's a key consideration. But also promoting effective detection of nonconformity with professional standards, root cause analysis, and remediation by providing tools, guidance, and data-driven insights. And so I think that's a really relevant one is consistency, right? We don't want one peer reviewer to be overly critical and another one to be not critical at all, right? Not identifying deficiencies or root causes. I thought there was a session engaged on the last day that was phenomenal where they actually put things on the screen and asked, is this a non-conforming engagement? And to have the conversation so people understood what does it really mean to be a non-conforming engagement? I thought it was a really well done session there. Anticipating and responding to emerging assurance trends, updating program guidance and materials in a timely manner, and clearly communicating those impacts, right? Looking at things like artificial intelligence and other items. Building and sustaining a future-ready reviewer pool. My goodness, this was probably my favorite slide. There is literally someone in his 90s still performing peer review. The average age of a peer reviewer is completely unacceptable. We really need to get some new blood in there. And obviously, allow people to understand what retirement means. So again, when we look at this, there's got to be a much better pool. So looking at recruiting, onboarding, mentoring, training, and supporting peer reviewers, right? So this is an area of focus and rightfully so when we look at some of the data coming out of peer review. Continuously reevaluating our operating model and technology infrastructure. Anybody who's ever talked about Prima, I don't have to say much more there. And then engaging in transparent, proactive, and accessible communication, right? So making sure that everybody knows what's going on. So in terms of what they're focused on, obviously technology being a big focus, regulatory complexity and uncertainty, other complexities, changing information needs of users, looking at things like sustainability reporting, governance, AI, reviewer pool sustainability, right? We cannot keep up with this. Like no one starts doing these that are younger. We need to mentor them. We need to help them. We need to coach them, but we need to onboard them and we need to find them and we need to take some of the pressure off of the people who've been doing this for way too long. Obviously, expectation of stakeholders and then internal infrastructure and operational resilience, right? One of the key considerations of the peer review board. So in terms of their strategic initiative, initiative A is to modernize and strengthen the peer review operating model. Again, focusing on consistent, high quality practice monitoring. So modernizing Prima, or hopefully its successor, leveraging AI and automation to reduce administrative burden, addressing internal capacity constraints, right? So really rethinking that modernization. Initiative B is to build a sustainable future-ready pool. So again, when we look at the long-term viability of the program, strong, well-supported reviewer pool. So focusing on consistency, strengthening onboarding and mentorship, and reducing barriers to entry. Initiative C, anticipate and lead on emerging assurance trends, right? Advances in technology, new service lines, regulatory developments, all of those need to be updated. AI-enabled audit systems and organizational, or what we call SOC reporting, quality management, other areas that need to be focused on. Initiative D, enhancing stakeholder engagement and advocacy, focus on strong relationships and transparent communication. Obviously, there's lots of different groups that are in here, but we need to maintain the value proposition, but also make sure that it is talking to the needs of the stakeholders, the AEs, reviewers, the state boards, NASBA, right? There's lots of stakeholders involved there. And then reimagining practice monitoring, right? A bold, forward-looking vision that reflects modern assurance realities, emerging technologies, and growing disparity across assurance approaches in different firms. And so again, relooking at the practice monitoring of the future, what is that going to entail? And integrating AI and other automation into it. So kind of interested to see what that future looks like. So in terms of their next actions, Initiative A is modernizing the review operating model, building that future sustainable, future-ready reviewer pool, anticipating leading on those emerging areas, enhancing stakeholder engagement, and reimagining practice monitoring. So hopefully that gives you a nice little overview. If you're interested, we've given you a link that you can take a look and read the entire proposal, but they would love to get your feedback. So if you haven't had an opportunity, this is proposed. Comments are due in August. So feel free to provide some feedback to the AICPA. So that's a wrap for this week's blog. We look forward to seeing you on a future blog. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.